You remembered who you are. Look who finally flipped the table. Look who reached into their back pocket and pulled out the card they swore they'd never play. The one marked, "Do not touch," in blood-red letters, wrapped in caution tape, buried so deep, even you forgot it existed. But something happened, didn't it? Oh, they pushed one button too many, said one word too sharp, crossed that invisible line you drew in permanent marker across your soul, and in that moment, in that beautiful, terrible, irreversible moment, you didn't just play the card. You slammed it down so hard the whole game board cracked down the middle. Now they're staring at the table in horror, watching their perfect little game dissolve into chaos, watching their rules melt like plastic in fire, watching you smile that says, "I'm not playing anymore. I'm rewriting the code," because that's what happens when you push someone past their breaking point. They don't break, they detonate. You see, they thought they knew all your moves. They had you mapped out, predicted, contained in their neat little strategy guide. Push here for guilt, pull there for compliance, apply pressure until they fold. They've been playing you like a fiddle for years, conducting your emotions like a twisted symphony. But they made one fatal error. They forgot that every game has a kill switch. Every program has a virus waiting in the wings. Every player has that one forbidden move that burns the whole casino down. And you didn't just find yours. You carved it from your own bones while they were busy counting their chips. Let me paint you a picture of what just happened in their minds. Imagine a computer encountering a paradox it can't solve. Imagine a chess master watching someone eat the board. Imagine a puppet cutting its own strings and using them to strangle the puppeteer. That's the look on their faces right now. But you can't do that, they stutter, frantically flipping through their mental rulebook. That's not how this works. That's not how you work. And that's when it hits them like a freight train made of karma. They never actually knew you. They knew the performance. They knew the character you played to survive their game. But this version of you that just pressed F5 on their entire reality, this is the real you. The one you kept locked away like a nuclear weapon, hoping you'd never have to use it. The one that doesn't negotiate with terrorists, even when those terrorists wear familiar faces and speak in honeyed voices. You know what's beautiful about making a game unplayable? It's not destruction for destruction's sake. It's the ultimate form of victory. You didn't beat them at their game. That would imply their game had value. No, you made their game obsolete, irrelevant, a relic of a timeline that no longer exists. They're scrambling now, aren't they? Trying to restore from a backup that doesn't exist. Trying to load a save file you already corrupted. Trying to find the undo button on a decision that's already rewriting history. But here's the thing about forbidden cards. Once they're played, there's no Control+Z that can save them. Every manipulation tactic they had, useless. Every guilt trip they'd planned, canceled. Every emotional button they loved to push, disconnected. You didn't just change the game, you changed the entire operating system. And now they're trying to run their old programs on hardware that no longer recognizes their code. Watch them closely in the coming days. Watch how they shift from anger to bargaining, to desperation. Watch how they try every trick in their arsenal, not realizing you've already seen behind the curtain. Watch how they slowly realize that the person they thought they controlled just became uncontrollable. But let's be honest about what you've done. This wasn't a small move. This wasn't a gentle boundary. This was nuclear warfare in a knife fight. This was bringing a black hole to a boxing match. This was you finally saying, if you want to play with monsters, let me show you what a real monster looks like. And yes, it's going to cost you. That forbidden card, it burns everything it touches, including the hand that plays it. Bridges you'll never rebuild, relationships that will never recover. People who will spend the rest of their lives telling stories about how you lost it or went too far. Good. Let them tell their stories. Let them paint you as the villain in their victimhood narrative. Let them gather in their little support groups and shake their heads about how you changed. Because while they're busy playing telephone with your reputation, you'll be busy building something they can't even imagine. You see, the beautiful thing about being cast as the villain is that villains don't need permission. Villains don't seek approval. Villains don't apologize for taking what's theirs. And right now, what's yours is your freedom, your power, and your absolute refusal to play by rules written by people who wanted you weak. So what happens now? Now that you crashed their game, corrupted their files, and sent their whole system into a death spiral. Now comes the part they really won't see coming. The part where you don't try to fix what you broke. The part where you build something entirely new on the ashes. You're not going back to playing their games with better strategies. You're not learning their rules to beat them fairly. You're done with their casino, their house odds, their rigged tables. You're building your own reality now, with physics they don't understand and laws they can't navigate. This is what it means to play the forbidden card. It's not just about destroying what was, it's about creating what couldn't exist while their game was running. It's about becoming someone so fundamentally different that their old tactics bounce off you like rubber bullets off tank armor. They'll try to drag you back, of course. They'll use every weapon in their arsenal: guilt, shame, fake concern, mutual friends, old memories. They'll act like you owe them an explanation, an apology, a return to the status quo. But you can't go back to a game that no longer exists, can you? Let me tell you what's happening to you on a molecular level right now. Every cell in your body is rewriting itself. Every neural pathway is rerouting. Every survival instinct that kept you small is being overridden with something far more dangerous: self-respect. You're not the same person who woke up this morning. That person was still playing by the rules, still holding back, still keeping that forbidden card tucked away just in case. But you're the aftermath. You're what happens when someone pushes the self-destruct button and walks away from the explosion without looking back. Your tolerance for disrespect? Gone. Your patience for manipulation? Evaporated. Your willingness to shrink yourself to make others comfortable? That died the moment you slammed that card on the table. What's left is something they should have been afraid of all along. You, without limits. This is why they're panicking. This is why their messages are getting more desperate, more frequent, more unhinged. They can feel it, the shift in power. the change in the atmosphere, the reality that you're no longer playing defense, you're not even playing offense. You've transcended the game entirely. But here's where it gets really interesting. That card you played, it wasn't just about them. It was a signal fire to the universe, a declaration that you're done accepting less than you deserve. And the universe? It's responding. Watch how opportunities start appearing. Watch how people who actually respect you start gravitating toward your energy. Watch how problems that seemed insurmountable suddenly have solutions. This is what happens when you stop playing small. The whole world recalibrates to match your new frequency. Those who benefited from your previous programming will resist this change violently. They'll accuse you of being selfish, cold, unrecognizable. They'll mourn the old you, the version that let them feed off your energy like vampires at a blood bank. Let them mourn. You're too busy living to attend your own funeral. Because the truth is, you weren't supposed to play this card. You were supposed to keep it hidden, keep it safe, keep playing their rigged game until you died inside. You were supposed to be predictable, manageable, controllable. But forbidden cards exist for a reason. For moments when the only way to win is to make winning irrelevant. There's no going back now. You've crossed the event horizon. You've initiated a sequence that can't be stopped, reversed, or negotiated with. And the most terrifying part for them, you're not even angry anymore. You're just done. This isn't about revenge. Revenge would imply they still matter enough to hurt. This is about evolution. This is about becoming something they lack the vocabulary to describe. This is about transcending their entire reality and building something so foreign to their experience that they can't even process it. You've become the glitch in their matrix, the error message in their code, the thing that shouldn't exist but does. And every time they try to compute what happened, their systems crash a little harder. Every time they try to understand your transformation, they short-circuit on their own limitations. They wanted a player, they got an architect. They wanted a pawn, they got a paradigm shift. They wanted someone they could predict and control. They got someone who just made prediction and control obsolete concepts in a game that no longer exists. So what are the rules in this new reality you've created? Simple. There are no rules. There are only choices and consequences. There are only actions and reactions. There are only you and the path you're carving through existence with the burning remains of who you used to be. You don't owe anyone an explanation for playing that forbidden card. You don't owe anyone a softer version of yourself. You don't owe anyone access to the new you just because they had a season pass to the old you. That subscription has been terminated. That service is no longer available. From now on, anyone who wants to be in your life has to meet you at this new level. They have to respect this new frequency. They have to understand that the game they loved is over, and what's happening now isn't a game at all. It's real, it's raw, it's revolutionary. And if they can't handle that, if they need you weak to feel strong, if they need you small to feel big, then they've already answered the only question that matters. Do they deserve a place in your new reality? The answer is written in the ashes of the game you just destroyed. Here's your final briefing, soldier of your own revolution. That forbidden card you played, it wasn't just a one-time weapon. It was an initiation, a beginning, a door you kicked open to a room full of other forbidden cards, each one more powerful than the last. You've learned the ultimate secret. The only rules that matter are the ones you write yourself. The only game worth playing is the one where you hold all the cards. The only reality worth living in is the one where you're the architect, not the inhabitant. They'll keep trying to restore their game. They'll keep sending messages, creating drama, attempting to pull you back into their maze. But you can't unknow what you now know. You can't unfeel what you now feel. You can't unbecome what you've become. You pressed F5 on their reality, and what loaded was yours. You found the forbidden button and didn't just push it, you hammered it, like your life depended on it. Because it did. Your real life, your authentic life, your unlimited life. Welcome to the other side of the game board. Welcome to what happens when someone finally says, "I'm not playing anymore." Welcome to your new existence, population U. Game status, unplayable. System status, revolutionized. Player status, transcended. Look at them now, still refreshing their screens, still trying to load a game that you deleted from the server. They're like gamblers pulling the lever on a broken slot machine, hoping that maybe this time it'll work. Maybe this time you'll fold. Maybe this time their old tricks will land. But you've changed the entire casino into a library, and they're still trying to bet with poker chips. The forbidden card you played? It came with an instruction manual they'll never read, written in a language they'll never learn. It's the language of someone who chose themselves over the comfort of others. It's the dialect of boundaries made of titanium. It's the syntax of "I'd rather be alone than be your entertainment." And they're still trying to Google Translate their way back into your life. You want to know the real reason they're losing their minds? It's not because you changed the game. It's because you revealed that you were never actually playing. All this time, they thought you were a participant. Turns out, you were just touring the facility, taking notes, learning their weaknesses. And now you've built something they can't even see, let alone access. Watch their desperation manifest in increasingly creative ways. The sudden interest in your life, the mutual friends becoming flying monkeys, the concern for your mental health, the rewriting of history where suddenly they're the victim of your transformation. It's like watching someone try to use a map of Earth to navigate Mars. Wrong planet, wrong rules, wrong reality. You've become something far more dangerous than they calculated. You've become contagious. Your transformation isn't just affecting them, it's spreading. Other people in similar situations are watching you, taking notes, finding their own forbidden cards. You didn't just exit their game, you showed others the exit door. This is what terrifies them most. Not that you left, but that you left so completely that return is impossible. Not that you changed, but that you changed so fundamentally that their entire worldview crumbled. You're not just unplayable. You're the reason their game is becoming obsolete. You're the virus that's teaching others how to corrupt their own files. Every time you don't respond to their provocations, someone else learns it's possible. Every time you refuse to explain yourself, another prisoner realizes the cage door was never locked. Every time you thrive without their approval, another player discovers the forbidden button in their own pocket. You're not just free, you're freedom itself, walking around in human form. They'll try to quarantine you, of course, spread rumors like antibodies, create narratives like vaccines against your influence. But here's the thing about truth. It doesn't need defending. It just needs to exist. And your existence, your thriving, your absolute refusal to return to their game, that's truth in its most potent form. Let's talk about what your forbidden card cost them, not what it cost you. You've already counted that cost and paid it gladly. Let's talk about what it cost the ones who pushed you to this point, because while you were calculating your escape, the universe was calculating their bill, and payment is now due. They lost their favorite toy, a compliant, predictable, manageable version of you. They lost their emotional punching bag, their ego boost, their control fix. But more than that, they lost something they'll spend years trying to recover. They lost the narrative. They can't explain what happened without admitting what they did. They can't play victim without revealing they were the villain. Every story they tell about your transformation will have holes in it. Every explanation they give will sound hollow. Because the truth is simple and damning. They pushed you until you pushed back. And when you pushed back, you pushed so hard you changed the laws of physics. They created the monster they're now running from, and everyone can see the blueprint has their signature on it. Watch them try to recruit new players for their old game. Watch how quickly those new players sense something's off. Watch how your absence creates a vacuum that reveals what the game was really about. Control, manipulation, feeding off others' energy. Your forbidden card didn't just free you, it exposed them. And exposure is the one thing their game can't survive. Something's happening to you now that goes beyond simple transformation. You're not just changing, you're evolving at a rate that defies comprehension. Each day without their game, you grow stronger. Each moment free from their rules, you discover new capabilities. You're not becoming a better player. You're becoming a different species entirely. Your intuition is sharper now, isn't it? You can smell manipulation from miles away. You can see through facades like they're made of glass. You can feel energy shifts in rooms before anyone speaks. This is what happens when you stop wasting processing power on their games. You develop abilities they don't even know exist. The forbidden card activated something dormant in your DNA. Call it survival evolution, call it rapid adaptation, call it whatever you want, but the fact remains, you're operating on a frequency they can't reach, seeing colors they can't perceive, hearing truths they can't process. You're not just out of their league, you're playing a sport they haven't invented yet. And the best part? This evolution is irreversible. You can't devolve back to who you were any more than a butterfly can crawl back into its chrysalis. You've undergone a metamorphosis that changed you at the cellular level. Every atom of your being vibrates at a frequency that repels their old games, like similar magnetic poles pushing apart. Well, well, well. Look who saw it coming. Not guessed. Not hoped, not wished for it in the dark, saw it coming. Down to the hour, down to the move, down to the exact face that cracked first, and it was not yours. If this script speaks to you, this book was written for you. The Joker Doctrine, the art of the last laugh. They laughed first, you'll laugh last. This book is the manual for everyone who was counted out, written off, and quietly building while the room wasn't watching. Not a self-help book. Not a motivational read. A strategy. Cold. Precise. Yours. You told them. You laid it out with cold precision, with surgical detail, with the kind of calm that only comes from someone who has already watched this film before in their own mind. And they laughed. They dismissed it. They called you paranoid, called you obsessive, called you dangerous for knowing too much about people who had already decided to know nothing about you. But here you are. And here it is. The reality you scripted playing out in front of everyone who doubted you, unfolding exactly the way you said it would, hitting every mark you circled, arriving on the exact timeline you predicted. Not approximately, not close. Precisely, surgically, hauntingly. So go ahead and let them freak out. Let them scramble. Let them look at each other with that hollow, wide-eyed panic of people who suddenly realize the person they thought was behind them was always ahead, was always watching, was always already 3 moves into the endgame while they were still arguing about the opening. This is not luck. This is not coincidence. This is what happens when a certain kind of mind has been forced by circumstance, by survival, by years of being underestimated, to become something they never accounted for. A reader of patterns, a cartographer of intentions, a person who predicted the storm not because they are strange, but because they built themselves inside one. Let's talk about what actually happened here, because the version they're telling each other right now is already being quietly revised. They're softening the edges of their own disbelief. They're retroactively pretending they saw hints of it too. They're rewriting their own memory in real time because the alternative, admitting you called it perfectly, is something their ego literally cannot process without fracturing. You remember the moment you said it. You remember the room, the silence, the way the air changed when the words left your mouth. You laid out the sequence. You named the players. You described the exact mechanism of collapse, who would break first, which alliance would dissolve, which promise would turn hollow, which person's smile would disappear the moment the leverage shifted. And they looked at you like you were unraveling. They called it a spiral. They called it projection. Some of them, the more sophisticated ones, called it catastrophizing, because they had just enough psychological vocabulary to weaponize against you and not enough self-awareness to recognize they were the catastrophe. They labeled your foresight as a disorder. They pathologized your clarity. They tried to make your precision into your pathology. But your prediction wasn't born from fear. It wasn't born from paranoia, or obsession, or instability. It was born from something far more threatening to comfortable people. Pattern recognition, sharpened by experience, by exposure, by years of watching certain kinds of people operate, by understanding that behavior is not random, it is consistent, it is logical, and if you study it without flinching, it becomes predictable, almost embarrassingly so. And now the embarrassment is theirs. Because reality didn't just confirm your prediction, it followed your script. And there is a specific kind of silence that falls over a room when the person everyone dismissed turns out to have been the only one who actually understood what was happening. You know that silence. You're living in it right now. Let it breathe. Here is what they never understood about you. And this matters because if you don't understand it yourself, you'll keep apologizing for it. Your ability to predict did not come from a gift handed to you cleanly. It came from necessity. From being placed in environments where reading people incorrectly had consequences. Real ones. Not social awkwardness. Not bruised feelings, consequences. And so you learned. You learned fast. You learned deep. You started noticing the things people do before they do the thing they're about to do. You started tracking the small betrayals that always precede the larger ones. You notice that people who are about to disappoint you begin distancing themselves incrementally. The replies slow down. The warmth cools by 2 degrees. The eye contact shortens weeks, sometimes months before the actual break. Most people call these things imperceptible. You perceive them. You started recognizing the architecture of manipulation, not because you are manipulative, but because you have been manipulated, and you studied it the way someone studies a lock after being locked in. You mapped the patterns, you cataloged the signatures, you built a library of behavioral tells that other people walk past every single day without ever reading, and the library kept growing. And your predictions kept landing. They called you calculating, as if calculation is a flaw, as if being the person in the room who actually thinks several steps ahead is something to be ashamed of. They were annoyed by it because it made them feel transparent, and they were right to feel transparent because they were, not to everyone, but to you. And that distinction, that gap between how they appeared to the world and how they appeared to you, is what made them uncomfortable in your presence long before they could articulate why. They sensed that you knew, not what you knew specifically, but that your level of knowing exceeded theirs, that your read of the room was deeper than theirs, that you were operating on a frequency they could hear but not decode. And people who cannot decode what they can hear become afraid of the signal. And afraid people do predictable things, which is exactly how you predicted what came next. You set it down to the hour. Let that land. Not the week, not the general vicinity of a timeline, you said the hour. You described the sequence of events with the kind of specificity that people only produce when they are either guessing recklessly or understanding completely, and it wasn't reckless. There was no chaos in your voice when you said it. There was something far more unsettling to them. Calm. The calm of someone who has already processed the outcome and made their peace with it. That calm is what haunted them more than the prediction itself, because panic looks familiar to them. Anxiety looks familiar. But the kind of quiet that comes from someone who has already fully reckoned with an uncomfortable truth that looks foreign. It looks cold. It looks like control. And the people who were planning to use chaos against you suddenly realized that chaos was not a weapon they could deploy against someone who had already mapped the terrain of that chaos and built a shelter inside it. The hour came, and with it came everything you said would come, not in outline form, not in rough approximation, but in the precise order you described, with the precise faces you named, unfolding at the precise pace you modeled. Reality did not rhyme with your prediction. Reality plagiarized it, word for word, beat for beat. And somewhere in the middle of it all, someone looked at someone else and said the words they had been quietly holding since the moment you first spoke. They were right. 3 words, small words, but the weight of them is geological. Because they were right does not just confirm your accuracy, it dismantles the narrative they built around you. Every time they called you paranoid, every time they exchanged that look across the table when you spoke, every time someone subtly positioned you as the unstable one in the room, all of it collapses under 3 words, and the rubble lands on them, not on you. You already left the building, and what are they left with now? They are left with the specific discomfort of people who owe an acknowledgement they will never deliver. They are left with the knowledge that they dismissed the most accurate voice in the room and elevated the least reliable ones. They are left running mental simulations of how different things would have looked if they had listened. They are not sleeping well right now, and you didn't have to do a single thing to make that happen. You just had to be right, and you were. Here is where it gets interesting. After you made the prediction, after they pushed back, after the conversation closed, with their dismissal still hanging in the air, you went quiet. You stopped pressing the point. You stopped trying to convince anyone. You pulled back from the debate with a stillness that they read as defeat. They assumed your silence was surrender. They assumed you had accepted their version of reality. They were wrong in a way that would later become expensive for them. Your silence was not surrender. Your silence was strategy, not the cold, mechanical kind, but the natural strategy of someone who understands that truth does not require your advocacy. Truth is not dependent on your performance of it. Truth does not need you to argue for it loudly in rooms full of people who are not ready to hear it. Truth simply needs time, and you had it, and so you waited. Not anxiously, not bitterly, with the particular patience of someone who knows the calendar is on their side. While you were silent, they were busy. They were busy building structures on foundations you had already identified as unstable. They were busy forming alliances with people you had already flagged as transient. They were busy optimizing for a version of events that you had already watched dissolve in your own projection of the future. They were, in the most precise sense of the phrase, preparing for a reality that was no longer coming, and you let them. Because preparation for a false future is its own punishment. The silence also did something else, something they didn't anticipate. It gave them the illusion of having won. And winning, to people who need to feel in control, is sedating. It made them comfortable. It made them slow. It made them stop watching you with the focused anxiety they should have maintained. They relaxed into their certainty that you had been neutralized, that the threat had passed, that the prediction had failed. And comfort is the most dangerous state for someone standing on a fault line. So when the ground shifted, and it shifted exactly when and how you said it would, they had no preparation, no contingency, no plan B. Because plan B requires acknowledging that plan A might fail, and plan A was built on the belief that you were wrong. They bet everything on your wrongness, and now they are collecting on that bet, in the wrong direction. Let's examine what is happening inside them right now, because this is important, not for revenge, you are well past revenge, but for understanding what you are dealing with. Understanding why the panic you're watching is not proportionate to the event itself. It is not just about the prediction coming true. It is about what the prediction coming true means about everything they believed regarding you. Their panic has layers. The first layer is practical reality, shifted in a way they didn't prepare for, and now they have to respond to circumstances they dismissed as impossible. That's manageable for most people. What is not manageable is the second layer. The realization that their dismissal of you was not skepticism, it was arrogance. And arrogance that has been publicly refuted by events does not dissolve quietly. It festers. It turns inward. It starts generating questions they desperately do not want to ask themselves. The question underneath all of it, the one they're circling but not landing on, is this. If they were so wrong about this, what else are they wrong about? Because your prediction was not an isolated incident. It was a data point in a longer series. And if that data point is confirmed, then the entire series has to be reevaluated. Every time they trusted their instincts over yours. Every time they elevated someone else's read over your read. Every time they made you feel like the outlier in the room. All of it is now under review. And here is what makes their panic truly spectacular. They cannot come to you. They cannot come to the person whose prediction just proved correct and ask for clarity, ask for context, ask for the next data point, because doing so would require them to say the one sentence they have structurally committed to never saying, "You were right, and I was wrong." Those 6 words are not available to them right now. Maybe not ever. And so they are panicking in isolation, with no access to the only person who actually understands the system they're trapped inside. You understand it. You've understood it for a while, and the understanding gives you a different relationship to their panic than they would expect. You are not gleeful about it. Glee requires that you needed them to fail, and you never needed anything from them except honesty, which they withheld. What you feel is something closer to the particular sadness of watching a structure collapse that you tried to reinforce for years, before realizing the architect did not want it reinforced. They wanted it to look standing. There is a difference. Now let's address the ones who are not panicking, the ones who watched everything unfold from the edge of the room, who knew, or at least suspected, that you were right, and who said nothing. Not nothing because they lacked the information. Nothing because they lacked the courage, because agreeing with you publicly would have cost them something in the room, and they decided the cost was too high. These people deserve their own accounting. You know who they are. You remember the small signals, the micro expressions of agreement that vanished before they could fully form, the split second of connection when you made your case that was immediately replaced by careful neutrality. They understood you. They were tracking what you were tracking, and they turned away. Not because they believed the others over you, but because belief and behavior are different things, and their behavior was always going to follow the social current, regardless of where their private understanding landed. The interesting thing about these people, the quiet witnesses, is that they are now carrying a specific burden that the vocal dismissers are not. The dismissers can rewrite their memory. They were loudly wrong, which means they have a performance to maintain, and performance is at least absorbing. But the quiet witnesses were privately right and publicly absent, and that combination does not age well internally. The event sits in them differently. It reminds them, quietly, repeatedly, of who they chose to be in the moment of your clarity. You do not need anything from them. You do not need their belated public acknowledgement or their private apology or their careful repositioning now that the evidence is overwhelming. What they do with their own conscience is their architecture to maintain. What you carry forward is something they cannot touch, the knowledge that in the moment when it mattered, when your reading of reality was tested against everyone else's, yours was the one that held. That is not a small thing. Do not let anyone make it small. Carry it with the same quiet you carried your prediction, not as a weapon, not as a trophy, as a reference point, as a calibration tool. As the evidence you return to when the next room tries to make you doubt your own processing, when the next group of comfortable people tries to make your precision into your problem, you have timestamps now. You have a record. And the record does not lie. This is the section that matters most to your future. Not the vindication. The vindication is already done, and you do not need to keep reopening it. What matters now is what this entire episode revealed about the kind of mind you are operating with, and how you should treat that mind going forward. Because the way you have been treating it, apologizing for it, softening it, translating it into language, comfortable people can digest that practice ends here. Your mind does not work in impressions. It works in systems. While the people around you were forming gut feelings and social consensus, your mind was constructing a model, a working simulation of how the pieces connect, how the pressures distribute, how the fractures propagate. You weren't reading vibes, you were reading architecture. And the difference between vibes and architecture is that architecture can be stress tested. And you stress tested the model, and the model held, and the building fell exactly where you said it would fall. This is not mystical. This is not a personality trait to be managed or softened or explained away in social situations where it makes others uncomfortable. This is a form of intelligence, pattern intelligence, systems intelligence, the kind that reads context as data rather than atmosphere. It is valuable in direct proportion to how uncomfortable it makes people who are operating without it. Their discomfort is not a signal that something is wrong with your processing. It is a signal that your processing exceeds what they were calibrated for. But here is the discipline that comes with this. You have to stay honest with it. The failure mode for a mind like yours is not inaccuracy. It is certainty that becomes untethered from evidence. The predictions work when they are built on observation. They fail when they are built on pattern matching that has drifted into assumption. You know the difference from the inside. The evidence-built predictions feel stable, structural, architectural. The assumption-built ones feel electric, urgent, almost enjoyable in their drama. Trust the architectural ones. Question the electric ones. And when you are right, especially when you are this specifically right, do not let the rightness calcify into arrogance. Because arrogance is the specific disease that infects people who have been validated after a long period of dismissal. It is the overcompensation for years of being told your perception was the problem. Resist it. Stay curious. Stay rigorous. Stay the person who builds the model and tests it, not the person who was right once and now lectures from the conclusion. The mind that predicted this is too valuable to compromise. No one talks about the cost of this. They talk about the vindication, the reversal, the coronation moment, and those things are real, and you have earned them. But there is a cost to being consistently ahead of the room that deserves its own accounting, because you have been paying it for years, and you deserve to name it clearly, not to complain about it, but to understand what it has shaped in you, and why the shape is worth the price. The cost is isolation, not the dramatic isolation of someone cast out, the subtler isolation of someone who can see further down the road than the people walking beside them. Every time you tried to warn something was coming, there was a gap between your certainty and their skepticism, between your timeline and their disbelief, between what you could already see and what they would not see until it arrived. You lived in that gap, alone, repeatedly. And the gap is its own particular kind of quiet. The cost is doubt, not yours, but others' doubt directed at you with enough consistency that it began to find cracks. There were moments when you wondered if they were right, if the pattern you were tracking was real or constructed, if your clarity was signal or noise. Those moments of induced doubt are the most expensive thing that environment extracted from you, because they were never about truth. They were about social pressure, wearing truth's clothing. And they cost you time and energy and peace that you will not recover, but can at least stop hemorrhaging. The cost is the particular exhaustion of watching, of always being the one who is tracking what others have decided not to track, of carrying the weight of a picture that others have elected not to look at fully. There is a tiredness that accumulates in the person who sees clearly in rooms full of chosen blindness. It is not the tiredness of weakness. It is the tiredness of a different kind of labor, the labor of sustained attention. In a culture that rewards comfortable inattention, you have been doing that labor for years. Acknowledge it, and then set it down. Not the ability, the burden. You were never obligated to convince anyone. You were never required to perform your knowing for people who had already decided the performance was a threat. The only obligation of your clarity is to use it accurately, to act on it wisely, and to stop apologizing for possessing it. The people who made you feel like your sight was a crime are now living inside the verdict that sight produced. Let that be the end of the apology.